Hey guys, and welcome to day 2. Today we are going to be jumping right into laying down the undertone layer. So let's go ahead and get started with the next layer. So now that our kit is fully primed and ready to go, we're going to go ahead and start warming up the kit and beginning our recipe using the Americano Skintone card. On this recipe card, there are 4 different mugs. We have mug 1, mug 2, mug 3, mug 4. We can see that there is a gradient. The ingredients that we'll need for this recipe, we've already gone over in the video before this one. Each color mix will be introduced in each video, so please follow along as we go through the series of the Americano Coffee Skin Tone. So we have a fully primed kit, a jar to create a wash consistency because mug 1 is a wash consistency. We have our cosmetic wedges, the larger one and the smaller one. Gamsol that I've put into this bottle. Our Flesh 02, which is all the pigment we need for this particular step. A small palette knife, a wash brush, a detail brush, mop brush, oven, fan, and air purifier. All right, so let's go ahead and get our Flesh 02. Our palette knife. We are going to fill up the knife to about this point. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me come a little bit closer. To about this point on the knife, we're going to fill it up with paint. Because we are only doing a few amount of layers, we don't need to put a lot of paint into this jar. All I'm doing now is just working the paint on the side of the jar to clear out any lumps, any clumps of paint that may have accumulated in the jar. Just to make for easier mixing whenever I add the Gamsol. I think that's plenty good enough. Trying to leave as much of this pigment as I possibly can in the jar without wasting it when I wipe it on this paper towel. Okay. Now I'm going to add enough Gamsol to create a wash consistency, but I want this consistency to be more of that of skim milk. So on my bottle, I have this pump. So I'm just going to pump about, let's go about 3 times. Okay, that is 3. So let's go ahead and take the 3 pumps that we used, which I already can tell that it's not going to be enough. Rule of thumb, add a capful at a time of Gamsol if you don't have a bottle that has a pumping device. I'm going to add a little bit more. And so to me, this is looking more like water, like tinted water. And remember from the beginning of this series, I told you guys that we want to have more of a skim milk consistency. That's not giving me skim milk. That is giving me more of tinted water. So we're going to just add some more pigment using our small palette knife. I think that's a generous amount. And again, just working it on the side of the jar. And we're going to emulsify it as much as we can on the side here to work out any lumps so that it doesn't fall into our paint and so that we keep the paint as free and clear of clump pigment as possible. And working it out on the side of the container is the best way to go. All right, let's hit that liner brush again. I dipped it into the Gamsol and then start to bring the paint down from the side using the wet end of the brush. Okay, so that to me looks more like skim milk than the consistency beforehand. It no longer looks just like tinted water. And that's what we're going for. Now, you may think that's a very little bit of paint. And it is. And that's because the first layer or so is only about, we only do about 2 to 3 layers of this warming up mixture. So you don't have to worry about having this entire bottle or jar full. So let's go ahead, clean everything up, and get ready to go over the entire kit with this mug 1 and the Americano recipe card. And you'll also note that on the card, those are swatches. The mugs are actually serving as swatches. So for instance, coffee mug 1 should match pretty closely to what I have in my container. So let's think about it like this. Mug 1 is a whole coffee bean that has not been diluted with any water or any other chemicals to change the color. Flesh 02 has been diluted from its original form from the jar and has now had gam salt added to it. If we were to add a little bit of hot water to number 1, it will be very close to this card, to this swatch, which is what we want in our first layer. And you're not adding any other colors to the very first mug. It is just Flesh 02 and its original color. So we can see that red tone that's inside of it. And if we put the red beside that of mug 1, we can clearly see that these colors do match. Bring our mixture back over, just making sure everything is nicely mixed, that our consistency has not separated. And okay, let's go ahead and begin warming up the kit. See that? I'm not even going to take that out or edit it. What happened is I did not take my brush. I failed to take my brush and mix it up in the mixture of paints. What I did was I allowed my knife just to be the source, my knife and my liner brush just to be the source of my mixture, and did not take the bristles of this brush to ensure that all the pigment was actually emulsified. So, word to the wise, make sure that your paint is fully emulsified before beginning. So let's go ahead and mix this up so that we don't run into that problem again. You're going to dip your brush into the mixture like so. Then you're going to take the brush from the back side, flip it over to drain off the excess paint, because we want to make sure that we are putting down enough paint, but not so much paint to where our creases start to get flooded. So let's go ahead and start in the back of the head. You can hear the texture of the primer as I am applying this Flesh 02. Take our mop brush and let's check creases. Gonna dab it off ever so often on the paper towel just to make sure I removed water from the mop. Not water, but paint or pigment. Checking the creases. All right. And this particular layer goes over the entire kit. We're gonna cover the entire kit because this is creating our undertones as well. This first layer is creating our undertones. So we want to make sure that we have a smooth finish for this as well. I mean, all of the application should end up in a smooth finish, but we just want to make sure that we apply this to every part of the kit. Using our handy dandy mop brush and working out any excess or buildup of paint in the creases. Let's go back to pouncing. We can already see a difference from the neck ring and the head from our neutralizing layer and our first warm-up. So if we take a look at our baby, we can see that it's nice and warmed up. And all set and ready to flash off, and we can go ahead and go to the arms. For the arm, I'm going to be doing everything. The nail beds, the inside of the palm. This is the only layer that will go over the entire kit. And remember, we stop after we do the hand, and we work all of that out as far as removing excess paint and pouncing before proceeding to the rest of the arm. We're gonna look really good between the fingers and the nail bed where paint could potentially sit in this area of the nail bed. We want to make sure that there is no paint in there. Turning our hand over on the side so that we can get the size of the fingers. Okay, let's proceed with the rest of the arm. And I am mixing up the paint because it can separate. But I mix it up, and as you can see, still taking my brush, back side, front side. And this is a wash consistency, so I should not be able to see the pigment that much, but just enough that will create my undertone and give me a hint of color. There aren't any creases over that area, so I didn't have to use the mop brush. All right, so I just flipped it over to make it easier to hold. And I am just sweeping on this wash. Again, no creases, so I'm just gonna pounce. I would say you can dab your sponge after every section. So we could treat this arm as a section. The inner part we could say is one section, dab. The inside of the arm could be another section, dab. The outside of the arm, another, dab. And the back part of the arm, dab. So you can break up the arm in any particular fashion. That just works for me. So let's put this on the limb holder or mug holder to hold and flash off. I believe our head is at a place where it can go ahead and go into the oven. Remember, your heads you should bake twice. So we're gonna place it into the oven facing forward for 9 minutes, and then we'll flip it around to face this way in the oven for 9 minutes, just to make sure we are getting everything nice and baked. All right, I'll pop this in the oven, then we'll come back and do the leg. Let's mix up this paint again. And do the underside, or the soles of the feet. Nail bed, toes, in the creases. Now, because we do have creases in this area, we're gonna take our mop brush and just work out, or clean out rather, all of the creases. Same thing, you can kind of like dab after a section. I think I already did that side. Let's go underneath. And now I think it's safe to say we can pounce. I'm gonna go back into the creases here. Same thing here. Going in between the toes. And then the creases on the bottom of the feet. And now we can pounce the rest of the foot. So we'll do 2 layers of this, and after the second layer, we'll assess it and see if the kit needs another layer or not before we proceed to the next mug color. Mixing up the paint. Back side, top side. Right. I love doing mug 1 because you can just, it's like coloring outside of the lines almost to me. You can just put the paint anywhere on the canvas in any type of way and it does not matter. Let's go ahead and pounce. And I think we already did that side, but it's okay. Now, let's go to the thigh. Taking this leg and flipping it upward. Mixing again, flipping, and applying paint. So mix, flip, flip, apply. Mix, flip, flip, apply. Mix, flip, flip, apply. I might have flipped more than once that time. I cheated, huh? We do have creases here. So let's go ahead and take our mop brush. Clear those out. Start on this side. And dab. Front side of the side. Sounds like thunder. And dab. And then the other side. And then the back side. All right, so we'll go ahead and let that dry as well. We currently have our head still in the oven on the first run of 9 minutes, and it has about 5 minutes left. We are allowing our arm and our foot to dry. And off camera, I'll go ahead and do the other arm and leg, and then another layer of this Flesho2, this wash, on the entire kit. So that's 2 layers. If I decide to do another layer, I'll come back and let you guys know. But as it stands right now, we're just doing 2 layers of the Flesho2 mixed with Gamsol that gives us a skim milk consistency. All right, I'll check in with you guys in just a bit. So if you're interested in the next step for the series, please stay tuned. We're going to be using a clear glass bowl, irresistible thinning medium, Viridian Blue 02, Genesis Flesh 02, or a dark brown, something comparable if you're using another line, and then Gamsol, a small palette knife in order to get the paint from out of the pots, a liner or detail brush, a mop brush, and 2 different sizes shading brushes because we're working with a toddler kit. Let's jump right in. Okay, so first thing that we're going to do is add some Flesho2 to our bowl using our small palette knife. We're just filling up the very edge of the knife here. And I always like to suggest, whenever you are initially making your mixture, to start out with less than what you think you'll need. It's always best to start out with a little than having so much. Although you could always preserve your paint with the cling wrap that we discussed in our very first video. So if you notice, the Flesho2 has a red base or red undertone. And what we want to achieve is more of a dark brown skin tone. So in order to do that, we need to neutralize the red tone with green. Green, of course, is the opposite of red on the color wheel. So that's why we're gonna go ahead and take a little bit out of this pot, just a very little bit. This green can be very overpowering, so we wanna make sure we don't get too much. So I don't know if you can, yeah, you can see that. It's just the very tip of my palette knife. And I'm going to put that on the side of the bowl beside the Flesho2. That may not even be enough, but yet and still we have something down there. We're gonna go ahead and mix it so we can take a look at what our color is. And I can already tell we don't have enough paint in our container. But like I said, always start out with a little, because we don't want to waste product. Let's grab some more of that Flesho2. I'm gonna wipe off my knife here. Being really generous with what I am getting out of the pot. because essentially I want this mixture to last me the entirety of painting the layers for this kit, for this step. So I want to make up enough to last me all the way through. And so I'm just mixing any clumps or any hardened paint on the side wall before adding any type of medium, just to make things a little bit easier on me whenever I start to mix. So I feel strongly that we have achieved a very dark brown. That red has that green has neutralized that red undertone pretty good. So let's put as much as we can off of the knife onto the side of the bowl. We'll wipe our knife off and add, we're gonna add double the amount of thinning medium against the pigment that we've added. Add a little bit more. So let's mix this. It's a beautiful brown color that we have. So we want to make sure that our color matches the mug 2 on our swatch card, on our recipe card. So I'm really just mixing really good to make sure there is no pigment in little small bits that will end up on the kit as my brush is taken from the bowl and applied to the kit. Okay, so let's see if this matches the card at all. There's more of a red tone in the Americano in this. Of course, these are stock images. So with that being said, I feel really strongly that I'm close enough to it. So I think we can say we're good.